Policy and Appeals Committee meeting to order. Have our illustrious Ms. Fisher call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Present.
Commissioner Leininger,
Here.
Commissioner House.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, item 1B is approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Yep,
Yeah, I'm with it. Yeah, that's for it.
I had thought about it. We should do
Let me
this.
support him.
Motion to approve the agenda by Commissioner Baker, support by Commissioner House. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Public comment. Do we have any public comment at this time? None heard. Moving ahead. Item 3, unfinished business, Board of Health intergovernmental agreement. And that's just for an update from Becky on that. So,
Yep. So, all the counties have approved the document as you submitted it to them, so that's good. I need to now collect all wet signatures. That's a little delayed as I ended up sick when I got home from Florida. And I will work on that next week, so we'll get that ramped up, sent up to the state of Michigan and get that process rolling. They know that it's coming, they
Perfect.
being the state, so.
all right, moving forward. Item 4A, new business, environmental health appeal, 175 Wayside Court. And
Morning.
good morning, Paul.
So, maybe introductions are in order here. So this is Mr. and Mrs. McNamara. They own the property at 175 Wayside Court. Commissioner Baker, Commissioner Leininger, Commissioner House, and Health Officer Rebecca Burns. Teresa Fisher is the Secretary of Board of Health, amongst about 16 other hats that she works for the agency. And I think you have met Cody Johnson before. And then we have James Young, who is environmental health supervisor. All right,
And I don't exactly know where this property's at. Is it,
it's on Marble Lake.
Marble Lake? Okay. The name wasn't familiar.
Okay, so, just kind of summarize how we got to this place, to the appeal process here. The McNamara's initially applied for a change of use, inspection. They wanted to build a new home, replace the home that they have at the existing property. Cody went out. He could not approve the change of use. The septic system that they had for the house, we did not have any records of, didn't know what the size was, where it was, so, that's an automatic denial. I can't hook up a new house to, an existing system that we have no record of. So, at that point, Cody informed them that it was denied, and that, if they applied for a permit, that likely that was gonna be a problem because of the size of the lot. So the lot is 50 by 97, bordered on one side of the lake. Very minimal space to put in, the original septic field and a replacement, which is required by our code. Anytime you have a new build, you have to have enough space for both. That's where the problem has occurred. So, over the months, we had, a lot of communication back and forth, emails, meetings. I met actually with their builder, from Busher Builders. I met with him. We went over all the potential options. I met also, with the McNamara myself, in the office. They had changed proposals a couple of times. Couldn't come up with a plan that would work, that would allow them enough space to get the reserve area. They went back, talked to the road commission and to the township. To the township to see if they could build their house a little closer to the lake, get relief from that. They did get approval from the township on that. My concern with the road commission was, because this is a mound system, it's gonna have taper areas. The drain field would have to be, built directly on the property line, would extend out into the road right away. So they did talk to the road commission and they had no problem with them extending just the tape area, which is basically just fill. So at that point, they came up with a new proposal. They could almost get the initial and replacement system in there. The septic tank would take up part of the drain field area for one of the systems. So I proposed that we could potentially approve this if they put both systems in at the time, because there's so little space. There's just no room for error. The McNamara's weren't happy with that. Didn't really want to do that. They actually contacted township zoning, Mr.
Matt Hassenfelter, Quincy Township.
Quincy Township, yeah, okay. So he actually sent me an email back saying that they couldn't put the reserve area where they wanted because they have to have the Lake District requires area for 2 parking spaces, which I was not aware of in all the discussion before that was an issue. So that kind of just blew everything up. If they have to have 2 parking spots, then they absolutely had no room to put in a replacement area. So at that point, I went back and told the McNamara's that, you know, really the only option that they would have now is to appeal it. I just didn't see how this could possibly work. This isn't space, which is unfortunate. I mean, our goal is not to prevent people from building their dream home or whatever, obviously, but we have to follow the codes. So we issued a denial letter, and then consequently they have filed for an appeal. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
I got it. So the drain field and the reserve would not be used at the same time. The reserve is just there in case something happens in the future, so they could have room to put another drain field if something happened.
Correct.
So they couldn't, right now, put their 2 parking spots here, and if something happened, move their 2 parking spots over here.
Because then the parking spots would be able to drain, which you can't do.
Well, no,
But
they
that-
won't, because that drain field's gonna be no good. They're
No,
gonna move it.
but
to
it
the
is, it is. Well, whenever you have, an existing drain field, and if it fails, we typically have people put in an alternating valve, because once that drain field sets, it'll actually, without any water going to it, it'll actually clean itself up and can be useful. And this has been common practice forever. So that option is not available either. And that was something that Rebecca and I had also discussed.
It is a requirement in the environmental health code to have a reserve area. And so, you know, before we get too far down the road into what happened, I do want to just talk about the second page and third page in your packet today. So this is the policy document that relates to environmental health appeals and goes through the parts of the environmental health code that relate here and the, you know, directions of the appeals board. So the thing that we need to keep track of is what the environmental health code states. And on page 3 at the top, it's specifically there in the italicized area at the top under hearing of appeals, references a section in the environmental health code, section 120, that individual variances from the requirements may happen if the following conditions exist, and list 1 through 4 there. So although appeals can be heard, we can't make up a new regulation during an appeal process. We do still have to continue to be in compliance with the environmental health code that we've adopted. And so that is this section in the environmental health code talks about. So I just want to make sure that I pull your attention to that. And we also in this document have shared somewhere. At the very end, I guess on page 3, as you know, we are an accredited local health department in Michigan. And every 3 years, we are reviewed by the state, who provides grant funding for this program. And during the 2009 review of our program, we were cautioned that when appeals are heard, that the board, can't establish a new regulation outside of the parameters of the current environmental health code. So just wanted to make sure that you guys are familiar with this policy, that you're aware of what the EH code says. So it's very important that we continue to stay in compliance with the code.
Can I,
Is there,
make
go.
one comment?
Sure.
Or should I wait? I don't-
Just wait a minute, sir, and then we'll get to you guys here in
Okay,
a
thanks.
second, so.
Go ahead.
Is there a code saying that they have to put in the reserve at the same time that they put in the main field?
So that's in our policy document.
Well,
In our
but
procedure
doesn't,
document.
but isn't that
Mhm.
our policy document, and that's, there's a copy of that here from, on page 5 of our packet, right?
The one that started, right?
The reserve area, the soil absorption system or device shall be located in such manner as to provide sufficient area for installation of a future system or device for equivalent capacity. And I read through the entire manual, and I can't find where it says that we have to, where it says we can require the installation of that reserve system initially.
That's not in the code, it's in our policy, but actually that's a moot point because we don't have a reserve area. The reserve area is the parking spot. So
It doesn't exist.
it doesn't exist. There is no, and I just want to reiterate on what Becky said, is not only is that requirement for a reserve area in our environmental health code, that is actually state required. And that's why we have it in our code. The state requires that. You look up on the MPRs, they require that any new construction have a designated reserve area
Okay,
that's
so
available for sewage disposal.
maybe, Paul, you'd say that that's not in our environmental health code, it's in our policy. Where's our policy at online?
I don't think it is, and I'll make sure we get that.
No. Okay, and that's, to me, that's a very severe problem. If that's gonna be a statute, then it should be in the code, not in the policy.
It's a policy and procedure document. So environmental health has many policy and procedure documents that direct the staff on, how they are to interpret and make use of what's in the code. To be clear, pages 4 and 5 are excerpts of the actual environmental health code.
Yeah.
They're not the policy document.
Right. They're the code that's adopted by the 3 counties.
Correct. Now,
Now,
I'm not
Where-
seeing the procedure document in here.
James, could you go and run off that procedure?
and I question, does the code, the environmental health code say this will be implemented and applied by policies and procedures adopted by the agency?
There is a piece in the EH code, of course, I don't have the entire code here, that talks about procedures are established. That's in here somewhere, I just don't have the whole code in front of me.
Maybe I missed something, or I wasn't quite paying attention. Why do we have to have 2 parking spots and not one driveway?
It's a zoning requirement for the
Zoning.
Lake District for the township.
Okay,
Which the township could in the future change that zoning requirement.
I don't know, I suppose.
and where's the township on doing a variance on the parking spot?
We actually have an additional parking space.
Yes, and
When,
so now I'm gonna ask, it's
if I have a presentation which kind of,
if
getting
the
into some of
if the
your
McNamara's
questions.
wanna present their case,
Go ahead.
are you ready to hear?
Yeah, I mean, that was the big thing. If we can just go to 1, then we got no issue, right?
Well, I think,
Let me take you through what I have, and then, I mean, subjectively, we can ask questions after that, but, the one thing that I want to make clear here is I don't feel that I'm appealing, or asking for a variance. What I intend, or what I'll try to demonstrate is our ability to meet the code as it's written, the environmental health code. And the documentation that the department has on their website relative to local requirements. Okay. So using the environmental health code, meeting with, Cody, Paul, as we went through this process, how we got here today was came up with a proposal that was to work with on the very first page of the deck that I handed out was lack of sufficient space to provide for a required primary septic mound and absorption field, okay? And sufficient space for the installation of a future reserve system, as stated in environmental code. So I would like to take you through what I think we do to meet that requirement. And then an additional request was to install both the absorption systems, both the primary and the reserve at the time of our construction, due to limited space. But it's almost like the way the environmental health code is written, it's a pass or fail. We have space for a primary and we have space for a reserve. Space for a reserve, not construction of two mounds. There is something in the environmental health code that calls for the construction of two mounds, but that's dealing with an absorption issue where you have to use alternating mounds to remedy the situation where you would have saturation. Nothing to do with limited space. So my question is, what defines limited space? What do I need beyond limited space to make this work? So like, working with the environmental health code, I hope that I can show that we do meet the requirement, and that's thus the appeal. I'm not asking for a variance. So in regards to what Rebecca was stating, it wouldn't really apply to this because we're not seeking a variance to a requirement. We're just seeking approval to the environmental health code as it's written. If there's internal policies or any of that, unfortunately, as a homeowner, a builder, those aren't available to us. I was going by what was available on the web and what was available on the internet through the environment, the Branch County Health Department page, right? And I was directed on what to use as we were putting our plan proposals together, and that was the data that I put together. So if you flip to the second page, there's a lot layout, hand drawn. But what I wanted to make note here is this is just to show the current lot as it sits. It's roughly 50 by, we'll call it 96, 97. The proposed building is shown in there, and then the two absorption fields are shown. One in black would be the primary. The space for the reserve is shown. The hatched area in between is the space for the septic. I tried in my limited knowledge of septic tanks, working with my septic contractor, I was trying to come up with something that was 4 foot wide to fit between the two. It didn't appear that that was available, so we have right now we're sitting with a 5 by 8 tank in between the primary and reserve field. Working with the setback requirements actually, they're not even documented in the environmental health code or in the local policies on the Branch County site. It just calls for 5 feet to the property lines. Working with Paul, we talked about the slope and working with the 2-to-1 slope from the top of the mound down to the grade. So if it was a 4 foot high mound, we would need 8 feet. Okay, so we were working to provide 8 foot clearance to both property lines, 4 feet between the two tanks, between the two absorption fields, and that would provide us 2 400 square foot mounds. Now, the one hiccup is that, the second to reserve field is at 397 feet because of the slight interference with the septic, tank itself. But based on the data that was provided, by, the health department, that we would need 2 feet of fill from the current grade that's on the property. If you do a stack up per the table F, which is documented in the environmental health code, we only need 3.5 feet, 42 inches from grade to top of the mound. And that would mean I need 7 feet instead of 8 feet clearance to the property. Thus, eliminating the interference between the tank and the reserve field. So we would have 2 400 square foot areas, one for the primary and a space for the reserve. As was questioned, there's nothing in the health code that says 2 mounds need to be erected at the time of construction. So the space for the reserve would be the space that we would park a vehicle at, right? We would be able to park there. It would be fully available if in the future, if the primary mound had a failure, we could put the primary mound into the reserve spot that was set aside. And the parking then would move over to the primary mound. Why the primary mound would have to coexist with a new mound, a reserve mound, is not documented anymore. And I just feel it's an additional piece of bureaucratic direction that I think just complicates things. And it basically is restrictive. And I feel it's contradictory to what we're trying to do an improvement here. We're going to have a up-to-date absorption field. But every time we try to come up with something that works, we're met with a new requirement. Now, the requirement to install both mounts was something, when we finally looked, it appeared that we had a workable proposal was given to us that we would approve it if you install both mounts at the time of construction due to the limited space. So in my opinion, I feel that if you look on page 4 of my deck, the health department's request to install both absorption mounts at the time of build. Again, it's the very top bullet point is due to limited space. Both mounts need to be installed. My proposal meets Environmental Health Code 703.2.7, and that states a soil absorption system shall be located in such a manner as to provide sufficient area for the installation of a future system of equivalent capacity. Future area, not erection of a reserve field mount. B on that same bullet point is there is no documented requirement within the Branch County St. Joseph Environmental Health Code or Insight sewage disposal documents that defines installation of 2 mounds due to limited space. And then there is no objective data, measurable data for anybody to use to define what additional space is required beyond the code 703.2.7. Another item that came up in working with the health department team was there was concern that the reserve area would be used in some other capacity, making it unavailable in the future. And in my subjective viewpoint here, with some data to back it up, I feel there are multiple levels of protection to guard against that happening, right? One is we have to apply for and we have to be granted building permit. Building permit is for eternity attached to the lot, the parcel. And it clearly calls out that area is reserved for a secondary or backup absorption. The lot layout is is permanently attached to the land parcel within Quincy Township Building Department. The lot layout is permanently attached with the health department documents, and it's attached to that land parcel. Any future building permits would need to be approved by both the Quincy Building Department as well as the Branch County Health Department. And that's on policy statement, change of use, on page 8. You look at that, it says on page 8, it clearly down there on the left-hand side, I have it fonted out in yellow, but under Article 6, Section 600.3, priority over building permits, it states that in summary, it states no official from county, city, township can issue a building permit without first being evaluated by the health department relative to a change of use. So if I was to apply for a building permit to build a garage on the reserved area, okay, it would have to be approved through the health department. The health department would pull up my parcel, they would see that that area is reserved, or they would do a field evaluation and it would be denied. So we couldn't put a permanent structure on the reserve space because it's called out and there's multiple levels of protection. It's called out right here in the documentation. This is a policy. This policy statement is available online. Going back to page 5, anything not requiring a building permit would be considered less permanent and removable when necessary. Again, it's clearly stated in the policy statement under change of use, page 8 and 9, items such as decks, outbuildings under 200 square feet, pavers, things like that are it's called out on that page, are considered easily removable, and they would not impede the ability to put a reserve mound in the future. So let's just say I put it down a paver driveway, or I put gravel down and I park the car there. And when it comes time to erect, if in the future we have a failure of the primary mound and we need to use that for the secondary, whatever's there, because it wouldn't have required a building permit, it would be considered easily removable. It would be moved, the new mound could be placed in that reserved area. And then the F on that page is additional level of protection. I mean, as a property owner, I would propose that we could create a deed restriction with the Register of Deeds that would clearly outline that area for the reserve mound is unbuildable area for any permanent or unremovable structures. That would go in a perpetual with the deed, whether the deed belongs to myself or it's transferred to a new owner. It would be clearly on there at their time of purchase or the sale of the property. It would clearly document that area is there for reserve. As far as the parking space within residential lots, so I was working, going back to the comments on that, when I was working with the zoning, Building Township for zoning, I had to get this proposal for the septic fields to fit. I had to request that I would move closer to the lake. They have a setback requirement of 50 feet. Working within their requirements, we were able to determine that based on some provisions outlined in their requirements, that I would be able to move my property roughly, well, not roughly, as much as 6 feet, 7 feet closer to the lake to provide for this space. That's what's documented in the drawing. That was approved by the zoning and building department. At the same time I was working with them, they were aware of the situation where we were trying to, make the two mounts fit in what we were working with relative from a spatial standpoint, not their opinion, this is their verbal opinion to me. They had never heard of having to erect two mounds at the time of construction. The Quincy Township zoning commissioner told me he had never seen that, in Quincy Township. And he wrote a letter, an email on our behalf relative to the situation, saying, basically fully supporting, his viewpoint was supporting our approach to how we we're trying to get this in, supporting our proposal. He did, that was when he mentioned, and that was the first I had heard of it too, that there was a requirement to provide for parking within, the lake lot is a zoned residential area, and you need to provide on that area, you need to provide for parking. Again, I feel that, the parking would be in the reserved area. If you look on this page here, which is a parcel layout of the Lake D subdivision that we're part of. If you can get to that page, it's page 11. If you kind of ground yourself, probably in the bottom third quadrant there, you see Wayside Fort. We're lot 33, which is on the far left there. Right adjacent to that is a public area. It's that lot is that parcel is called Public Beach. There's a drive onto the public beach. There's parking on the public beach. People park their cars there. We enter sometimes through that drive, park along the edge of our property. I feel that if the reserve space doesn't suffice for the parking, and I guess I don't understand why we can't use that space as the parking. There's also the ability for us to get to our lot through that public area and park along adjacent to our building. So I think we meet the requirement for the parking. We meet the requirement for the spatial requirements as stated in the health code. I'm not asking for a variance. I'm just asking for approval for our proposal that meets the requirements as written in the environmental health code. Yes, that's basically the conclusion of my presentation. If there's any questions, I'll try to answer them. Comments or input.
I think I've got a quick question.
So you're saying that you could potentially use this public beach lot for parking. Now,
You
would
could
the township approve you of using that as permanent parking?
I'm not asking to use it for permanent parking.
It's kind of what everybody does. There's a public driveway there, and you can drive and park right along the side.
I'm basically asking that we were able to use the reserve space.
Can I ask a question regarding your drawing? Is it to scale? I don't think it is.
Yeah.
It is to scale.
It's the scale. There's a scale on.
Okay, so 15 by 27 is 400 and some square feet, if you do the math.
Yes.
And so if that's the only area available, you don't have any room to do any kind of a taper here. You would be doing a walled up mount. Is that what we're asking for?
No, he's got room to taper back to property lines on either side and taper it into the road right.
So you're basically saying he's tapering all the way to his property line, all the way to the edge.
Right.
So there will be no access to his property behind the septic system.
Have to look at the scale. I don't know how far.
Am I reading this right, guys?
No,
he needs 400
because
feet.
it's 15 feet wide.
Yeah,
And
Even the 5 feet between the mound and the house, 5 feet won't give you slope.
We're not asking for, we're gonna backfill right up to the foundation. We're gonna raise the foundation.
They're bringing the grade up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, no, that's okay.
No,
though.
no.
No,
well, we
that's,
need
that's
10 feet from the foundation,
Push.
5 feet.
don't we?
it's 10 feet if you're.
It's a slab.
Okay,
It's a 5 feet required. It's on page.
Yeah, there's no basement.
there's no basement. Okay. No crawl space.
Issue there, obviously, we're not gonna have basement.
Right.
I
Exactly.
mean, that's why we're.
High water table.
Right.
Won't be much sense trying to dig a basement there.
I just don't even see where there's room to taper here. To me, it would be like a walled up mound. It'd have to be a concrete block
from,
Which way are you talking on the paper? Or
You-
the house?
The
or-
whole thing has to be tapered. So you need four
Not
hundred
just
square
house, they
feet.
Build the whole thing up to the top level of the house. They're backfilling the house to bring the house up
How
to the top
tall
level.
does this need to
it's
be?
not, this drawing here, Becky, is not showing where the road is.
Okay.
So there's some distance between the edge of the drain field
Mhm.
to the road, and that's
Right.
the road right away.
Yeah.
So there's significant amount of space there that's road right away that they can't put the drain field in, but they have gotten approval to put their taper area.
In the
As
same.
well as, you know, the distance on either side of the drain fields.
I think you did a great job at showing on page. Oh, where is it here? Then our own regulations say 83 feet 6 inches.
Yeah, using table 7, F,
That's
based on
table
that
7F,
stack,
that's table 7F of the environmental health.
yes.
Code.
And it's on, I have code here.
Right here.
It's on page 32 of the environmental.
So you're gonna build the house 4 feet above grade. So you can not have, you're just gonna 5 feet out, start your septic. No. That's what you're proposing.
We're gonna fill, it's gonna be fill in between the mound and the foundation. And we're gonna have an elevated foundation on the roadside of the house, and we're just gonna fill right into that.
So we're talking, we're gonna start the house here. That's 3. This is 4, isn't it? I don't know. So we're gonna. So we're gonna build up the house that tall. And that's what's been approved by zoning?
It's not a big house.
Well, I mean, understand that, you're putting new infrastructure on a property that's really small. And so new infrastructure needs to be supported entirely. So a good water supply well, a good septic system that's gonna last. I mean, you're building this house to last not just 10 or 15 years.
Right, that's
You
what we
expect
wanted
it to
put in
last
there, so-
50 to 75 or longer, right?
Yeah,
So you need, you know, the reason the environmental health code requires an initial and a replacement area is that people don't abandon their houses after that septic fails. They, you know, that's why that requirement is there. And we are required, as Paul indicated earlier, by the state to ensure that on new builds, that there is an initial and a repair. It's not an option for us. It's also in our EH code. That's what keeps us in compliance with the state. So, you know, the infrastructure that supports this home needs to last for 100 years as well. And that's why there's a requirement for reserve area. On lots like this, where there's little space, like once your well, I'm assuming is it's up here in the front on the lakeside. When that fails, which it will at some point, how do we get a well rig back here?
through the commons. The public school.
The south side of our property would be
The beach
easily-
property,
We run into this all the time. You get a lake lot, the well fails, there is zero access to where the well is. The only way to get a well down is to hand drill. They are pounding it down, and it's hard to find a well driller that's even willing to do that work, okay? So you and I had a conversation on the phone. Lakes need sewer. They need sewer,
Mhm,
Believe me, I'm 150%
we wish.
right?
in
So-
favor of.
Right.
period.
So, you know, the fishing cottages that were built years ago, that people occupied for 2 to 4 weeks out of a summer, were never intended these lots were never intended to even act as more of a, even slightly part-time residence, whether it be part-time, full, it doesn't matter. When we're building a new house, it doesn't matter. We can't look at it from the lens, well, you're only gonna use it in the summer, and in the winter, you're going back home or wherever. We can't look at it that way, because today that might be your intention, but things change, and the next owner, or even your life might change, and now it's a full-time residence. And so when we look at this, we can't look at it from a lens of, today it's part-time. We have to look at it from a lens of, we have to consider this could be a full-time residence used all the time, washer, dryer, you know, the full gamut of everything. And that's why the environmental health code requires that initial and that replacement area. Because it's part of the infrastructure of the home.
Correct.
And there is nothing worse than a lake property where we have had to go out and there's a failure, and the only thing left to these people is a holding tank. And we have those in the 3-county area.
A lot of them.
We have properties where the only thing that's left to them is a 1,000-gallon tank. And when that 1,000-gallon tank fills, they have to call a pumper out at, I don't know, what's the going rate now, $400 every time you get 1,000 gallons of water is not very much. I mean, you know, what do? You don't do laundry at that house anymore. You don't have a dishwasher anymore. You know, you don't flush the yellow, you wait until there's more. You know, you do everything possible to lengthen out. So I feel for you guys, because I understand you've got a piece of property that you love, but I just don't think this works. Personally, these guys get to make the decision. I'm going to continue to argue that this doesn't work. And long-term, it doesn't work. We need sewer on these lakes so that people can build the way they want.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm
But
done.
Let's get back to the facts, and not opinions and what we wanna feel.
It's not opinions.
But here's the bottom line, is there any code that says, once we have to go to a reserve spot, that they can't terminate the
Yes.
existing?
It's in the code.
It says you can't terminate the existing dry well.
Section 700.3, part F, page 19/20, that's what it's on here. Says sufficient suitable areas shall be available and reserved to provide for a minimum of one replacement system without utilization or disruption of the initial.
So that has to stay there if it's terminated.
It says it has to be there without disruption to it.
So we park on top of it, we're not
Where's that
disrupting.
at?
Section 700.3.
So we park on top of it, we're disrupting it.
The code does not allow.
You're gonna park on top of a mound.
It's tapered all the way to the roof.
Well, what they're requesting is put the one in, and that's the reserve, and then in the future you flip flop. The code says if you can't put that reserve in and disrupt the old one.
They're not gonna disrupt the old.
They are, because that's where the parking has to go.
On
Well,
top
we
of
just
it.
have, wait,
top.
we can check on six.
I understand that, but the township required parking designation, that's part of.
Right, but they can't park on
EMS.
top of it, that's what I'm getting.
You're gonna park on top and fourth of mound?
No, you
That's
don't park on
failed?
top of them.
That's tapered to the road. Is there a code that says you can? That's where I'm
There-
at.
It's in there about, traffic, I'd have to find it, but yeah.
I'd like to see it because we're.
It has to be protected from traffic. You shouldn't even be parking on a reserve area. In a reserve area.
Should be or in the code.
It's in, here. So
Can you bring it up for me?
I will find it. When you park on a reserve area, that compacts soil. The very worst thing you can ever do to a septic system is compact the soil. Even during construction, they're supposed to, do they actually do it? It's
No.
a different world.
What,
It's the compaction of it. So all of a sudden you have decent soils that now turn into not decent.
but on these mound systems, is our evaporation down or up?
Both.
What's the majority?
I don't know what the science says, but it does both, and it depends.
I would tell you the science
It
would
depends,
do
it
up.
depends on whether it's
I
completely,
would argue that, I think it's still mostly it's going
Yeah.
down. There's gonna be
Why
some
we built the
evaporation.
table there.
Yeah.
It's just to get it away from the water table, so they're separating, allow that sewage to filter through, soil to clean it up before it hits the water table. That's why we're building them up. Gotta protect the groundwater supply.
I mean, there's a lot of, can't come up with numbers because, you know, if you have a mound that sits out in the middle of an open area, it's gonna be different in terms of the evaporation and what they're considering, the fact that they can put a house up to one side of it. So I can't give, you know, there's no way to give you a percentage, so to speak. You know, if it's blocked in on two sides, it's gonna be less than if it's open on all four sides.
The health department adopted.
So if you park on top of it, you can crush the lines and then it doesn't distribute equally around the 400 square feet that's required.
I mean, possibly, you know.
It happens. We have been out to repair systems that have been crushed. So it does happen.
I just like to see if there's a code that says,
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you know, in 703.2.3, the code specifies that the system cannot be installed beneath a building. That's why I asked about the 10 feet. Road, driveway, or parking area, or any location which may be subject to damage from vehicular traffic. So you can't park on top of it.
well, I get that, but we're terminating this saying it's no good. It just doesn't make any logical sense. Well, it's already garbage, but we can't park on it because we might break a pipe.
Well,
But it's not garbage.
it's not garbage. They do clean up. And so even though we switch to that reserve area, someday the reserve area fails, right? And then we're gonna, you know, we still need to have
Could we
extra area.
could we erect a new mound at the time the reserve fails so many years down the road? Why do you have to have that mound sit there unused?
You wouldn't unuse it. You would use it. You would alternate between one and the other
Because why would I need
to extend the life of, because of the
How long do they
infrastructure you're
stay?
doing.
We have one that's our current system. It's been in there since 1948.
Yeah, and it's probably going directly to the lake.
And this is so contradictory to improvement. I mean, you stated what the health department is trying to do, protect the public, and you listed things. And we're trying to do an improvement for the township of
Yes.
Quincy, to the county. Improve the property value, put a up the code system in place in lieu of something that's been there for 75 years. And it seems like there's one reason after another where whatever we've
Can't
tried to do,
improve
we just can't get it. It almost seems like we're not working together on trying to, make an improvement to a property within the county, a tax-paying property. I mean, we didn't just buy this place; we've owned it since 2001. We just didn't walk in and say we're going to build a new house.
Sure.
And we've looked at other options, right, in remodeling things, and it was limited because of our foundation. Now, if we tear into the foundation and we could end up doing some sort of a improvement to the property, and we would end up with one mountain, right, with no space, right? This is the best of both worlds. We'll have a new construction. We'll have a primary mound up to code with a space for a reserve.
One thing I think that I'd like to impress upon you, why we're where we are right now, is there's a lot of properties like yours across all three counties that would like to do something with it. And we have to be consistent on the way we treat everybody. So, there's a lot of homes out there that can't do something like you want to do because the code requires it. And those people, there are people that have to buy an additional lot, maybe on the other side of it, but in your area that had to do that to meet the code. So if we all of a sudden, well, we feel bad for you and you're trying to improve, and I appreciate what you're trying to do. I do.
Correct.
I'm not trying to downplay that,
Mhm.
but from a consistency point of view, we have to be consistent on how we treat every one of these. footprints.
Sure, I agree, and that's important.
Mr. and Mrs. McNamara, the reason I was late today is I wanted to drive by your property again. I had been out there, second time I've been out there,
Okay,
drove up and down the road. Who owns the garage across the road from you?
the neighbor on the, north side,
The neighbor to the north of you owns a garage across the
directly
road
across.
and owns the other garage north of there.
No, he owns, directly across the road.
So you come in, what is it, Lakeside Drive, you come in and stop in there and you turn right. You guys are right there on the right. There's a garage right there on the corner.
Yeah, right, directly across the street from us. Yep,
The neighbor to the north of you owns that.
yes.
Yeah, cause the other side of us is an empty lot, so our next door neighbor owns the property.
So, just to give you a little bit of
Mhm.
history, the neighbor to the north of us is original owner. Built around the same time our property was built. He purchased the lot that originally belonged to our house from the first owner of our property.
The off lake lot.
Yes, and he then he subsequently at some time between 1950 and 2001, when we bought, he erected a garage that's centered within those two lots. I attempted to buy the corner property from him. Many times he just won't, he's not interested in parting ways with it. And in fact, in the documentation, he actually applied for a requirement to put in a new septic.
He needs a
And
new septic.
He's putting it in that location.
He's putting it out there on
In
the
the
corner.
corner.
Yeah, if there was, looks like they were digging up some tree roots and stuff. They're getting ready to install that.
And that's one of the things that, and I'm the commissioner that asked the health officer some questions about some of the other parcels over there on the lake that, that look like have had some new houses and Paul just said we have to be consistent. So I'm just wondering how we're consistent. I mean, I have a documentation here from 177 Wayside Court, which would be the property just to the north of them. And it shows the drain field south of the garage. It shows the garage directly across from the residence, and it's not. If that's the case, it's south of the residence, so where is it and where's the drain field at for that home? Because that's the area that they're digging up, looking like they're going to maybe put another one in.
What's the address?
177.
Active permit. That you're holding.
I don't,
It's in the package.
yeah,
It's
it's
on
page
page 20.
20.
It's one that was already installed.
Then there's no drain field south of the garage.
Then all of us.
Well, there could be, but there's not. There may be one north of the garage, but there's not one south of the garage.
This is a repair permit, so I want to point that out. So it's a repair permit for a single family, so it's not new, so that makes it different. On a repair permit, our job is to find a location for a new system. So we're not looking, when we're doing a repair, we're not looking for the repair area. We only are insisting on a repair area, and a new,
Replacement area.
Right.
sorry, thank
Yeah.
you.
185.
Okay, this one's a new.
That's a new. It was done in 17.
Mhm.
What page?
Page 23.
23.
It looked like at that point in time, there had been an existing bed there for a former home. They tore it down and built a huge home. Where's the reserve area for their future drain field?
They have two drain.
No, but the existing one is not as big as the new one that was required based on the size of the home. And so a reserve area to me means you have to have a reserve area for a drain field that's required for the size of that home. And between the new drain field they put in and the lake, where's the set aside area for the new drain field?
I didn't issue that one. I'm not familiar with. the
We'd have to look at more information on this one,
Okay.
because we just had,
Yep, and then the next one, 181 Wayside Court. Which is one where the drain field is across the lake, or across the road. Where's the set aside area?
It's down, if you look on the drawing side.
Yeah, it's kind
it
of
says
cut off
reserve-
on the
It's kind of
drawing.
cut off. It says reserve area
Lower left-hand corner.
on the issued
right here,
side.
right where your thumb is, kind
Okay,
of cut off.
and there again, there's enough room between the existing drain field and the lake for that reserve area?
That one's on the other side of the road. Like I said, I'm not familiar with the property, but if that's on the other side of the road, the lake's not over there.
There is a lake over there.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah, it backs up to another lake.
The code, they call it.
Oh, okay.
Well, he called for the reserve area to be there, that's why it's on the permit. So the sanitarian at the time, that's what he called for the reserve area.
I mean, because if that's the parcel. And McNamara's have a plat of that, and I'm not sure. Looks like there's 106 feet.
Well,
I think that's lot 17. It's what's within 50 feet of the lake.
So I'm not sure what the concern is, that they put it too close to the lake, or I'm not.
Well, what's our setback from a lake for a drain field? What is our setback from a lake for a drain field?
50 feet if it's in construction.
Drawing.
If it was built prior to 74, it's 25 feet.
Okay, and this house looks like this house surely doesn't look like it was built prior to 1974.
Oh.
And so, my Paul, you said a little bit earlier, we have to be consistent.
Mhm.
Okay, so my question is, looking at other homes that we've approved stuff at on this lake, how are we being consistent with, well, your reserve area can be here, but that reserve area, based on the lot dimensions that I'm seeing, can't be used as a reserve area because it's gonna be within that 50 feet of the lake.
I can't tell from this drawing, right? I don't know. I pulled these permits up off of
Mhm.
our computer. Didn't go actually out to those sites. Trusting our people that they're not gonna, cite a reserve area that's gonna be too close to a lake.
If he called the reserve area there, the reserve area is there, there's room there. He wouldn't have called it if he didn't feel.
Well, if you see this if you lay it right there, it's actually lot 17. There's only 106 feet on that side, and there's 50-foot of drain field.
Well, I don't know that Tony drew this to scale, and he does it, he says not to scale right there. So I mean, you can't assume
The
that.
property section is definitely the scale.
Yeah, the
Which
property,
one?
The property
this
description.
map from the McNamara, Becky,
Okay,
okay, which comes from the plat book.
sure.
Shows lot 17 being on the north line.
But is it lot 17? Because the property, the house is on one side of the road. The
Correct.
drain field is on the other side of the road.
Yep,
So
It
how do we
is.
know that that's lot 17? Where
Because-
the sewage system, I'm not seeing it.
Which property are we looking at?
181 Wayside Court.
181 is lot 17 and 30, according to the permit.
Either way you look at it, there's only 90 foot of frontage on 30 and 106 feet on 17 on that side. You have 50 foot of drain field. Unless that sucker's sitting even with the road, or
The
50
person
feet.
who put in with dad, he's passed away, but he pretty much did all of it.
Even back in 06, John?
No, 906. Oh, 2006. He might went back.
Okay, so that's 90.
And again, that's my concern. How are we being consistent across the board with did we change that setback from the lake at some point in time?
Not, this predates me being at the agency.
Not
and
since
that-
06?
But, no, I don't think so. Not to my knowledge.
Mr. House, your thoughts?
Just taking it all in right now.
I think we need to revisit policy, because anytime we add to anything the state did, I think it's ridiculous. Mandating a second sewer be put in at time of build only added money to the builder. Person building the house. I mean, the cost of buildings it's huge anyway, and we're gonna add more money to their cost of build, because in the future, their site may go bad, or then again, it may not.
Or we may have sewers, or
When that's
Yeah, then again, 50 years down the road, there may be a sewer running down the middle of that road, and it's never needed.
we hope.
I guess what's in it may now, unlikely is the
Oh, for sure, it's dumping into the lake right now. If it's not, like she said, piped right into the lake.
Are you guys full-time residents?
No.
So you're here this summertime rather than?
I mean, it's, I don't wanna say we outgrew the place. Between my wife and I, we have one son, he's 29, so he's not with us most of the time. He grew up, we used it as a family. But I mean, the situation is there's only one, it's so small, you're climbing in and out of the bed in the same side, right? It's like if my wife has to get up to use the restroom at night, she has to crawl over me to get, we were hoping to make the place, improve
Little
it.
more comfortable.
Yeah, comfortable, make it like, improvement, not only, from a selfish standpoint that we would like, but also I think it adds,
Our
again, it adds value to Branch County. It adds value to the township of Quincy to have, and I understand that there's requirements and there's a health code that we have to work within, and just because we want to create beautification project, but at the same time, in my opinion, I think we met the environmental code. I know, I can't remember your name, but, James, mentioned, that one provision that without the disruption, of the, primary, or utilization, I mean, we wouldn't be utilizing the primary. We're not saying that the reserve would be only available if we utilize some of the space for the primary. We're not, it's a reserved space independent of, with the clearance between the primary and the reserve. We wouldn't be utilizing the primary to facilitate a reserve amount that we would need in the future. I guess I don't understand why it says disruption, but it does. I'm looking at it. It says disruption of initial, but yeah, I mean, I would, as the property owner, if I needed to go to the reserve field and construct it, I would choose to dismantle the primary mound, because maybe I'd like to put a swing set there for my grandchildren. You know, what would be the use of it? I mean, to have a mound sitting there, it's just to sit there. I think it's a piece of, I don't know if the word bureaucracy, but it just seems like a policy that is very restrictive for no good reason. Personal opinion, subjective viewpoint of a taxpayer. I mean, I don't want to come off as arrogant and anything. You know, this has been a long process. I remember, I originally came in and met with Cody, and, you know, we had a couple face-to-face meetings at your counter over here. And, you know, everybody I've worked with in the health department has been cordial and supportive of what we've been doing. I mean, we threw a lot of proposals. It's been an iterative process. But at the same time, I think, you know, from the way that it's been approached from a professional standpoint on the health department side, I've been the same. I mean, I've been completely courteous. I've never been negative about any of this. I've struggled to understand some of it. And as you can see, that I've spent considerable time evaluating the data that was available to me. If there's policies that aren't available, you know, my opinion would be they should become available down the road for the next person. If it's not there in black and white, how are you supposed to design something or what have you? People can make some poor decisions based on lack of information. I think that information should be made available if it's going to restrict, you know, financial improvement or building projects, whatever. But, you know, the information that was available, that you know, is very appreciative. I used it in trying to figure out how to make this work. And I was made aware of it through the health department. Told me that this is where the location of the data is, and these are the policies that we need to follow. So
I guess the question is, where this board moves it along or agrees or disagrees with the appeal, what's the next step after?
So, Commissioner House, we would either, this committee would move to recommend to the full board to either grant the appeal or deny the appeal. And then the full board of health would take this issue up next week, Thursday. Whether it's to grant the appeal or to deny the appeal.
That's what I think. I want to thank you guys. You guys are very professional and
Yeah,
well
you did a great
spoken and did a great job and very understanding in this process that you want to move forward with your life and yeah, one way or another. So where you at on this, Rusty?
I think we need to revisit our policy of mandating a second unlimited space. I mean, if the state doesn't mandate it, why are we adding to it mandate? With that being said,
So one little tidbit. So you were saying the mound is useless. The best system in the world right now is a two two drain field system with a diverter valve. The day you install a septic system to start using it, it starts failing. Does it fail within 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years? That's typically based in usage. It starts to fail the day you start using it. You flush the toilet, it's starting to fail. Water goes out there, it's building up the biomat, all that good stuff. Bad stuff, actually. So ideally, you know, and this is out there in the state that's been batted around, is that it's mandating putting two systems in with an alternating. It's been batted around before.
but it's not there right now.
It's not there right now, but I mean, that's
Why does everybody seem like they're just trying to talk?
No, I'm not saying that they don't have it.
Here.
I just
You
say
can't,
that
you can't, you
the
can't.
best system in the world, if you don't have sewers, is to have an alternating drain field system. So that you're using one, it's failing, and the other one is drying out. It's drying out, it's getting rain, it's, you know, it's breaking down the nutrients. And then, you know, whatever it is, 1 year later, you flip over to use the one that's not there, and the other one is healed. So that, you know, I just want to make sure you understand that, you know, if you build that mound, it's a cost. Don't get me wrong. And even if that's the only one that gets put in, when that other one gets put in, that is not useless by any means. It is actually your best insurance policy for reserve to survive even longer. Because at that point, we typically, you know, if it's a 50-year-old system and full of roots, you know, we're not necessarily putting a diverter valve, but we're also not talking about reserve area. Typically, the diverter valves get put in for that reason. Now your reserve has a shot of it lasting even longer. And like I said, and it's one of those, same thing, you know, what Becky had brought up, we get a lot of people, not you necessarily, they want to come in and put in 5-bedroom houses. And I say, you know, I've told them before, I'm like, it's a 1,200, 1,400 square foot field. They're like, but it's just me and my wife. But it's a 5-bedroom house. You could sell it tomorrow to a family of 8.
Sure.
So that's where it gets into, you know, that's why we have to go. And same thing on a commercial system. Commercial systems are very, very similar. Banquet halls, rental hall, township halls.
You know,
And the first thing they want to say is, well, this is only getting rented out once a month.
Mhm.
But it doesn't matter. It can be rented out that one day a month. It's going to be 500 people in there, and that system has to be able to.
you know, I want to say, you know, from the day when we purchased, sewers were approved. There was a vote.
You don't need to go.
It was successful. There was a recall, subsequent an additional vote, and it failed. So we purchased our property with we thought sewers had been approved. There was a public vote. 6 months later, it
No longer.
revoted and they didn't. I want to say since then, there were two, maybe one significant, substantial effort to get sewers. And there's just not enough. I don't know, you know, like you were saying state mandated to put in 2 mounds. But why wouldn't there be pressure to get the state to mandate around lakes? I mean, this isn't a rural community anymore. We have neighbors all around us. It's like, I live where our permanent residence is. It's as populated here as it is there around that lake. And it just baffles me that there's not any kind of, except that there's a small grassroots effort to get like a push for sewers. It just gets immediately stamped by, local, resistance. But it just seems to me there should be, you know, and I'm probably preaching to the choir. I believe we're probably all in
You
this,
are.
you know, that there should be some kind of
It gets stamped out by people who have paid $10,000 to $12,000 to install a mount system. That they have to install.
That's
Probably.
exactly.
Right, and now they want them to spend another 20,000 in
So-
assessments to get this.
You know, what's interesting though, is like we were referencing one of the properties here and that very neighbor who was adamant against sewers. Voted, you know, barely, creating friction amongst other neighbors because of his viewpoints of it. He's one of the ones who's now is paying to put in, what, 30 grand to put in a septic system, right? He would have been further ahead if he would have just, you know, if the sewers would have came in, he would have been a fraction of that cost. It's just the thinking, and in addition to what it does to the lake. I mean, we've been here since 2001 and things have changed on the lake. Weeds.
Well, 180. 185. Yeah, how many cottages did they tear down to build that?
So I also wanted to bring up, you were talking from 106 feet. Don't forget that's the property line. It's not to the edge of the water.
It's a floodplain, right?
It does, well, you can't put a septic in a floodplain. You just can't. It has to be 50 feet off the surface of water.
But the property line.
The lake is another 33 feet out.
But it's the property line, right?
It's not 50 feet off the property line. That code is 50 feet off the property lines are drawn typically, especially in subdivisions and with occupancy, it's a straight line. It's not a straight line because of anything other than
You're saying that it's 106 feet to the property line, right?
to the property line is another 30 feet. So it's
But it's
100.
Right, but you can't build it to the property line.
But it still counts for the isolation.
The 50 feet isn't from property, line, the 50 feet is from the lake. So that mound doesn't have, you were talking about the reserve area, that's not.
Right, but the one that was installed showed more than 5 feet is a setback from the road to the edge of the slope. And now you've got that slope at the backside of it too. And now you're gonna put another one back there, so you got 106 feet.
No, you got 130.
No, you have, no, you can't go over
You
the
build on
property
someone else's
line.
property?
You can, well,
It's the property line.
so it's one of those that it doesn't necessarily have to be of the same size, because dimensions. So, I mean, you probably run across it also. There's no magic in 20 by 50. 20 by 50 is the same thing as 25 by 40 in our world. It doesn't have, the next one doesn't have to be 50 feet long. I mean, you can see the well sitting over there. I mean, ultimately, if I'm looking at this drawing, I'm just going by the drawing. I have not been out. That reserve area may sit between the drain field and the 50-foot.
Well, I would tell you that if you look at it, there in a picture of that, it can't,
I've got
because
it.
there's a beautiful big
Well, yeah, I
garage
see the garage with kind
in concrete, yeah.
concrete, yeah. And that's one of those things that,
Why are we even?
see, this is where we get into is the fact that we have to designate it. If it's designated and you build on top of it, it can get yanked out.
But,
It's supposed to be,
and
you know, that's why we have to designate it.
what we don't have here doesn't also tell us where the well is for lot 18, which is the one just north of lot 17. And that's not in the diagrams anywhere. It shows the neighbor's well for the other side, but it doesn't show the location of the well on the north side.
Well, it's a sewage permit, so it doesn't necessarily have to.
Right, but a septic system can't be installed within 50 feet of it as well.
Correct.
If it's beyond it, where there's a lot of times we don't necessarily put them on there. If it's 50 feet on the other side of the road and we're putting something over on this side of the road, we're not necessarily putting a well that's 175 feet. Everything that's on the drawing is anything.
They would was trying to. It's what?
Yeah, if it's over in the other market.
We're talking about lot 17.
Well, no, I said lot, so, right, lot 17, it shows that, we have talking about what have we done out there with other properties. It shows that proposed reserve area being to the west of the one that was installed. And you said, and the parcel that's north of that, if that's the reserve area, well, if their well's within 50 feet of that, they can't use that as a reserve area.
And that's one of the things he looks at when he goes out, the sanitary, look at that, if that
Yeah,
area
yeah.
is not available.
Yeah, if you look in just above where it says reserve area, the mound for the next door property is right there. It's cut off again.
Okay.
Existing mound,
Existing,
that's what
yeah.
it says, yeah. So that's the existing mound for
For that,
whatever property, either that
That's-
property or the one across the road. which is
that'd be parcel
18,
lot 18.
it is 18 or whoever's across the road, I don't know if that's a.
No, across the road is that, 185.
180.
190, I think 185. And their mound is north of the house. Well, commissioners, I will entertain a motion to either accept or deny the appeal.
Make a motion, to accept the appeal, move on to the full board.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Baker, support from Commissioner House to accept the appeal
Is it accept or approve?
of, well, it'll be to approve.
I would like to ask for some stipulations to be placed upon that. If you're going to move this forward for approval, then we need, some type of deed document that is on record. So that the next property owner is aware that their parking area is, a reserved septic area.
You have a problem with that?
No, actually, it's in my proposal, it's,
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that that would be in their motion. So,
The full board needs to understand.
Yeah, sure.
And I will further just share with you that I think, we are in violation of environmental health code 700.3 by moving forward. So,
Revisit our,
We have a motion on the floor.
we haven't voted yet.
Correct. So we have a motion to, recommend approval of the appeal to the full Board of Health. Contingent upon the, deed
Deed
restriction
restriction.
stipulation as offered by the magistrate.
Got it, next meeting.
Hearing no further discussion, I will ask for a roll call vote on that.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner House,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Make one, need to revisit our,
Let's go to our next new business and then come back to that.
But you have all that information for all the commissioners.
And Mr. and Mrs. McNamara, that Board of Health meeting will be next Thursday at 9 AM here, back in the same room. There will be 3 additional commissioners, should be 3 additional commissioners that join us that day for that as well. And it would be greatly appreciated if you would work with the deeds office to get that, legal description done and that deed restriction recorded even before that.
Okay.
Board of Health meeting.
can do that.
you would ask me
You are
before
welcome.
the final vote?
Well,
It's open to the
or,
public.
well, have it prepared and ready to,
I would have it prepared, but I would not file it until final
I'm
vote,
just throwing that. out there.
because it's just gonna mess up
Better
their, title search, you know, if there's a signal. I would not, you can write it up, but do not record it. until-
Write it up.
Oh,
From our standpoint, write it up.
You can write it up. We'll help you with it if it comes to pass,
Okay,
but don't file it yet.
so I can submit that through email to.
You send everything to Teresa, who's
Teresa,
the secretary of Board of Health.
you guys, thank you so much for all of your time.
yeah, and
Thanks
you know,
for
and,
Appreciate.
and yes, like you said, those lakes need a sewer system.
You do.
State's also looking at a statewide sewage code, so if
Yeah.
that happens, things change as well. So, I don't know.
All right, thank you all. Have a great day.
Yes,
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Moving forward in our new business, we have the proposed, personnel policy manual changes.
yeah,
Teresa
so,
or Rebecca, if you, Rebecca, Teresa.
Starts on page 28.
we,
Anybody need a file break? Quick? We're good.
okay, so it does start on page 28. There's a summary of the proposed changes there. The Personnel Policy Committee, we meet with them. Actually, we've been meeting with them about once a quarter, or even maybe more often, which is a good thing. This is a good group of staff that is concerned about, you know, doing the best for the agency. And so, excuse me, they have proposed, and we work with them on this. The changes there are on page 20. So the first one on pages 5 and 6 of the document.
We're still in session. Yeah, okay, so when we're done, I'll message. Thank you.
Personnel Policy Committee had a separate document for its bylaws. The section has been updated to incorporate the items from the bylaws in the Personnel Policy Manual, eliminating the need for separate documents. Oh, that relates to, I guess, it's all in red there, on pages 33 and 34 of the packet.
Who's sitting in this? These guys here?
Employees from the 3 offices.
We have one rep and one alternate for each office. So one from St. Joe, one from Branch, one from Hillsdale, and then, myself and Teresa.
They're elected by the staff members, their representatives.
So that was the first, item for change. Is there, I mean, do you want me to just keep going?
Yeah,
Okay, so the next one on page 9 of policies. Change language from 3 consecutive months to 6 consecutive payrolls to clear up confusion. So it's under, so it's page 37 of your document. Number 19, removal from payroll. An employee who is defined as casual does not work within 6 consecutive payroll periods shall run from payroll as voluntary resignation. So we have very few casual staff. Casual, really, that is just exactly, we call them when we need them. And sometimes we have casual staff who just really don't come in anymore. And so those are the folks that, after that 6 consecutive payrolls, we just take them off, so.
do we, and that doesn't impact any of the people that work for us, like, the dental testing and, or the vision and stuff during the school year, they're not,
The flea people here, not the flea, the fit people that doesn't affect them.
So the hearing and vision techs are full-time employees that are laid off during summer. So it doesn't affect them, they're not casual
Okay.
status. Our vector techs, we actually bring them on with a contract, so it doesn't affect them.
so they're just employed for the summer
One
months.
contractual employees, so.
Yeah.
people.
The only person I can think of, one casual staff, and she's a clerical. Vera?
Right now, we only have just one.
Yeah, and so, we brought her on during the pandemic to do some pandemic work, and then we've been able to continue her as a casual, and she comes and helps us when we need coverage for somebody who's on maternity leave, for example, or, an extended absence, so.
Would changing that to 6 months or to 6 pay periods have resulted in her being removed from the employee staff?
No, Sierra works pretty regularly. We had several casuals there for a little while that were pandemic staff, and they were nursing casuals. And the reason we're asking for this change is because it's confusing whether 3 consecutive months. So let's say they didn't work until let's say they worked February 15th. Now do they have to go?
15,
know,
15.
Is it 15 to 15, or is it, March, April, and the full month of May, which is why we're asking for this clarification, because it just makes a difference on when they remove people from payroll. Both of the folks that have recently been termed through this.
I didn't understand it at first, but that's obviously a logical reason there.
And they both, we erred on the side of caution and did the full consecutive 3 months. So it was more like 3.5 months for one and almost 4 months for the other. But both of them had kind of indicated that they weren't gonna, work any, whenever we call it, they wouldn't, they weren't available because they'd gotten different jobs. So we're just asking to clean up the language so that it's clear for, everyone what that means.
Next one is on page 41 of your document. This has to do with, you may remember, we had a promotion at the health department, and the next, the individual ended up with just a couple of cents. Is it 1 cent? 2 cents. A 2-cent raise, even though they received a significant promotion. So what is proposed to say now, the rate of pay for employees who've been promoted to a higher level position will be adjusted to the minimum rate of pay at the higher level, which is what it said before, which is what we did, and it was 2 cents, or to that salary step on the higher level, which is at least a 3% increase above their current rate of pay, whichever is higher. So if we have a promotion in the future, that individual would realize the same kind of a step increase that they would realize if they moved up to the next level more. This is how I think of it.
Cause they were at the top of their food chain and they went to the bottom of the
Well,
food chain.
they don't go to the
and
bottom.
They go to 3 to 3, and then go
Right.
next, say they're making $15, $20.
But in that case, that person was at the top, or close to the top, they moved down, they still have more room for advancement.
Well, for sure, they can advance from there, but
And
So the staff felt that that wasn't fair. That person, because they went from a particular level to, even though they understood that they had the opportunity for more pay in the future, they didn't feel that it was fair and they are asking to make this change.
This
we shoot this down.
This would adjust the,
mhm,
the rate of pay scale.
so it does,
Messing up the pay scale of the next level until they got to the next year or whatever.
well, in that, so our current policy, and without that wage schedule in front of me, it's hard to, because it's we have what, 11 steps, 12 steps? I forget how many, 9 steps, or 9 grades,
9 grades, yes.
9 grades, 7 steps.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's a 3% change from step 1 to step 2 within the grade, step 2 to step 3, or 3% or 3.125,
3.1 something.
because it's supposed to be I think it's 25% change.
20 or 18 or something like that. Anyway,
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
20, right. So it's just a little bit over 3% change in between steps. And as written, if you're at grade 5, step 6, and you move to a grade 6 position, you're supposed to go to grade 6, but at a wage schedule, at a step that is up just above your current wage. And in that situation, right. You know, even applying the 3% or the wage increase that we applied to the wage schedule, still moving, up that grade, you fell back in step to get it to that wage that was above where they had been at. It's still a pay increase over where they were.
Yeah, it's like it creates the 2-cent problem all the way through there. Because the way the scale is standardized now, it is almost always like two cents. If you're on the top end of this one and you're going to the next grade down, it's almost always a two cents.
And I thought it was step 6 moving up. I thought he was a step 6 and he went,
Which Board of Health meeting was that? Because that's
that
how,
was December.
okay, so we can all look at
Cause we were looking at that pay raise that they were gonna get formally, and
Which they
Yeah.
still got that pay raise and
it. Yes, sorry.
So what I said to the staff was, the policy, the board followed the policy, right? Because the policy said, the next higher step, which puts it 2 cents. So the board followed the policy when it was shut down before. If you don't like what the policy is, you have to change the policy, right? The board followed the policy that was in place in December.
So correct. They didn't like the answer, so now they wanna change the policies, basically where we're at.
I mean, yeah,
And which is their, they can do that.
they could, there were,
We can also say no.
yes, you can.
You absolutely
Yeah.
can.
Can. But that is something that, after that vote happened, it was brought to the Personnel Policy Committee's attention. And they requested that, it be looked at, and so they looked at it, and now they're asking for a change. So
After we get what?
7. What's that in there?
are you sure it's December?
It was December.
Yeah, it was December.
So there's the lease, the bylaws, health insurance, holiday schedule, committee meeting schedule. Looking at the right thing. It's Board of Health meeting.
Was it December,
Yeah, it was-
finance and then
It was
January?
Go to page.
It was item eight to the full board in December.
Oh. Okay, so the packet doesn't have an H. We added things to
I do.
that agenda.
I'm looking at it online, it's right here. For the full board. EH supervisor wage.
What page?
I don't have the page when you look. That one didn't have a page number.
What's in there though is the draft 10%, the 7% I don't think was there.
Oh, yes, 7% was not there. You're correct, the 7% was not there.
So we're on page 80 something.
It's on page 70, the 10% increase is on page 73 of that agenda.
Yeah, there wasn't a draft 7% to that game. They sent a draft for 10. We agreed.
Right.
Okay. Can you maybe print that wage cut, Chris? so we
Yeah,
can
let me
get that
just run
revised?
and print it. That'd be quick.
And we'll move on here.
The page 70.
I'll just print the, what's currently in use.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, so moving on, so the next one is, turn the page 14. So our personnel policies did not reflect meal expenses reimbursed for, conferences and travel stuff that staff are required to do. It was reflected in our, request for training document that staff have to fill out and the supervisor approve, but it was never actually in the personnel policies before. So there's a proposal to add this into the personnel policies now, so that on page 42 of your packet, the yellow highlight there drops the meal expenses in here. It also elevates them slightly. So currently, breakfast is $7.50, lunch is $10, and dinner is $15. The Personnel Policy Committee reached out to the 3 counties and asked the 3 counties, when your staff does this kind of stuff, what are you reimbursing for meals? And they took that information and upped ours a little bit. Some of the counties are quite a bit higher, but we did not raise it to the level that some of the counties are at. Now, I will say that in almost all cases, when staff are sent to a conference or a training, usually meals, some of the meals are provided, most of the meals are provided. So the agency doesn't typically end up paying people to eat when they're at trainings, but if we're sending them to training as part of their job, this is what we do. So 2 things here. We're asking if this be inserted into the policies, and we're asking for an increase to 10, 15, and 20.
I'm a firm believer, but unless you got a COA, you buy your cheap anyway.
Yeah, you can go to McDonald's, I guess, and get a sandwich, but
You're not gonna get breakfast. Well, I can't get breakfast before $10 at McDonald's anymore.
yeah. So anyway, so that's that one. May I move on?
That's
Okay, so page 16, so a couple of pages in, which is gonna be page 44 of the document today. This is language to match the column headers of the updated uniform pay scale approved by the board in December. So, in red there, you'll see the health officer shall seek approval from the Board of Health of any new hire that is started above the first step, is what it used to say. And we're asking to change that to step 2 on the employee salary scale. So, there was approval for the health officer to start somebody at the first year step above the starting step.
It used to be higher, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6, right?
Yes. And so we're just saying now, instead of First year, it would be step 2.
So at the county, I believe we go to second step. But they have to work 2 years to get to the third step. So you're gonna say you're gonna hire someone in 2 years. Give them a 2-year pay, but then when they're next year, then they're gonna go to 3.
We don't do the delay like that. We haven't done that. Again, this is very rarely used. Where it has been used is with nursing, usually. And a nurse with no public health experience, I wouldn't bump them to step 2. We have hired some nurses that have no public health experience. They're RNs, but they have no public health experience. So I have kept them at the step 1. Now, if a nurse came to us from Lenawee County and they're a public health nurse, I would bump that one to step 2. And potentially even bring it to you, depending on their qualifications, bring it to you and say, we really need to look at this one, the higher fee scale. So we can bring this person in.
I understand that. That's not our policy. I just want to make sure where we're at.
And our policy is, we dictate to the department head, hire at step 1.
Step 1. So,
It better be extremely extenuating circumstances that you can ask for approval, but there better be severe extreme circumstances for something higher than a step 1.
right. And that's why I'm saying to you, this is very rarely used. And it requires the health officer to say it's okay. So, I can tell you as your health officer, I'm not just going to randomly go out there and start everybody at step 2. I'm not going to do that. I can't say what your next health officer is going to do, but I can tell you what I do.
We ran into that St. Joe County. We started people off at step 3 and do what talk about piss the whole ordinance off.
For sure.
Yeah, 'cause you got people that have been there for 2 years that aren't at
That
step
are
3
making
yet.
it, right? They've been there for 15 years and these people are making the same money and they're pissed.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
All they're doing the same work.
Okay, so that's that one. The next one is page 26. It's a grammatical error, so hopefully this one's. So that would be in your document. Page 54.
Yeah.
Letter of resignation, so letter of was added. Encourage an employee who intends to resign. So that's just cleaning up grammar. Okay.
Are there cases where you get a letter of resignation and you say, we're gonna continue to pay you for 2 weeks, but turn your keys in right now, there's the door.
We haven't done that since I've been health officer. I can't think of
We have done that
once.
one time that I'm aware of, since I've been in this seat. We have done that.
No, you can't say, never mind. Usually what we have done is,
We paid someone in lieu of their notice.
A severance package.
we
Well,
put
you
people
paid
on
them their-
administrative leave.
Paid them their 2 weeks
Yeah,
and still give them their,
Yes.
and we put people on administrative leave where basically we will give us, you don't come to work for, we do an investigation.
We do it our attorney rec.
We do that pretty much. The next one was page 33, which is gonna be page 61.
This was brought to you by the employees. They
Some
would
of it-
require someone
Well,
who hasn't been here very long to use their PTO for a holiday.
some of it is brought to us by employees, others of it is, questions that arise in HR because policy is not clear. This one, arose through the HR department on, what are we supposed to do? But then the employees set it and decide how they want to.
It seems like you're punishing a short-term employee.
Well, you're requiring them to take their PTO, but if you don't require them to take their PTO, now they have the day off and they still have that PTO to take, which does affect the other employees because now they're gone on their day.
Well, all the other places have the day off and they have PTO because they've been here over 6 months or whatever.
So this only is effective if someone doesn't get their holiday pay. Or they didn't-
Short term.
because they didn't show up the day before, or the day after.
It wouldn't affect anyone that's only been here a month or two. It doesn't qualify for
No, they qualify.
No, they qualify.
day one.
They qualify day one.
Yeah, it only affects people that don't show up the day before or the day after the holiday. So it's, the policy requires you to work the day before and the day after a holiday. If you don't work, you have to have a pre-approved absence, pre-approved,
Tell your brother.
or you have to bring a doctor's slip. And, we had an employee that did not do either, just did not show up. And so the question came through payroll. Do we short them? Can they take their vacation time? Because the employee wanted to take the vacation time because they wanted the full check. Like policy doesn't say you can pay them.
But they weren't free.
They weren't pre-approved for the vacation.
Right. Right. So the question came through payroll, can they take a vacation day? Policy doesn't say they can. Doesn't say they can't, doesn't say they can. If they can, okay, great, then they get paid. If they can't, then the problem becomes, did they earn their full allotment of accrual for vacation and sick time? Because they didn't work a 75-hour payroll. And people that don't work full 75-hour payroll, their accruals are adjusted. So it just created all these other questions.
If they took a vacation day the day before, they still have to take
But that was,
PTO.
that was pre-approved.
Okay.
If they have pre-approved vacation, they're still getting their 75 hours and everything's good. It's only when we had an employee that didn't.
They just decided not to no-show the day before or the day after a holiday.
Yes.
Because they wanted an extra long holiday.
Probably a little good
Yeah.
time.
Yes. So, that's why this clarification is there, because it created a problem in payroll and the policy wasn't clear on what we should do. So we took it to personnel policy and said, what do you guys think should happen?
Okay, I just took it as it was from the short term, didn't have. But yeah, if that's the case, that's fine.
Well, they can't use their vacation time, what's 2 months?
60 days.
60 days. So, they would have to come into work, right? But, but then they would also get their holiday, because they were. Right, the last one is on page 35 or page 63 of your document. So this talks about the resignation and added language that requires employees to work through their notice period. It's implied on page 26 under bullet 9, but not explicitly spelled out. So, once they resign to resign, and they need to complete their resignation period in good standing, which means, they don't.
Taken off those last 2 weeks.
And so that's what happened. And we didn't used to pay people out their sick time. And so everybody was taking their sick time and just not working through their notice. They just take their sick time. And so the board updated the language to allow us to pay out, sick time and to get people to work through their notice.
Train your replacement, which is
And how
just
is
work until we get rid of your replacement. You're an employee.
So how this came about is it has always been implemented that they had to work every day of the notice period in order to legally get sick leave. It's not specifically spelled out. It was called out by an employee, and it punishes employees that give longer notices if they have to work every single day of their notice. So we had a nurse that was retiring. She gave us 2 months notice. Does she have to work every single day of that 2 months notice? She wanted to close on a house in Tennessee. You're like, I need a day off because we need to run down there and close. Like, well, the way the policy has always been implemented, even though it doesn't say it, is you have to work every day of your notice. So this is kind of a general way to fix that. You still have to work your entire notice period other than pre-approved days off. So your supervisor could approve you to work a day in order to have a day off during your notice period, which wouldn't punish people for giving your notice periods, which is beneficial to us.
Beneficial that we'll maybe get a longer notice period for somebody that's going to be retiring in September.
So are there any of these that, you wanted to go back and look at again?
Just that 3.
The pay wage to me,
Right.
go up over 3%.
So that's the one on page.
It's on page 41 of the, Right.
You know, our goal is when we give somebody, we don't give it to, I mean, we do give it, but when someone earns an increase, like a movement from one step to another, you know, we want to reward them for that work that they've done to put themselves in a position to qualify. I mean, that's why I just think the 3% should be done. You know, the person that we elevated to the next higher level, they accepted what they accepted the position, even though the request was denied, but they weren't real happy about it, of course, you know, so,
And they're gonna make 2 cents more.
yeah.
But they already topped out their pay scale. So, and they've got nowhere to go but up from there.
It's a
we-
significant amount of
the-
responsibility they took on for that 2 cents, though.
the other option we could look at. And I would have to look at our wage schedule. We went with a 9-step change with the 25% spread. From step 1 to step 9, there's 25% increase there. I think maybe what's causing this is our 7-step with a 20% spread. Where, right, you get step 6 and step 7 are right there with a 1 level, and even step 5 at times, step 5, 6, and 7 are right there with steps 1, 2, and 3 of the 60, the next grade.
No, I agree. It was an unintended consequence of the way we put the scale together, which is why I thought it was easier to fix it by saying at least 3%. Because this in between steps is just over 3%. So it kind of fixes that without having to mess with the scale.
So, and the other thing to keep in mind is that this doesn't happen, like, this is really rare, right? We don't have a lot of people who are at the top of the scale that manage to step into a position at the next, we really don't.
No.
Did he take that job?
He did.
Okay.
He was here today.
Oh,
So he did take it, but again, he, like Teresa mentioned, he assumed a significant number of additional responsibilities that, you know, he didn't have prior to that.
And it made it worse for him because it's the second time it's happened to him.
that's what?
It's the second time it happened to him because he was a sanitarian and he moved
Here.
from a sanitarian to a senior sanitarian and got, I think it was 12 cents at that time, or 8 cents. And then this was the second time it's happened to him because he's moved twice up the scale.
And in his case, because he did that right at the end of the year, first of the year, okay? Anybody that potentially would have that, do that now. Well, yeah, you're gonna see that pay raise. No, but then if the Board of Health makes an adjustment to that wage schedule at the end of the year, you're gonna see that change as well, and then in, 4 months, 5 months after that, you're gonna see that change to the next step up as well, so. What was the recommendation from Mr. Notley when he did the report?
Oh, jeez.
I just about guarantee you what it said. Cause I'm sure that it reads the same as the one he did for Hillsdale County, that when you step up, right, you go to the next step with the wage closest to, but above the one that you were at.
That's how the state reads, and every time I promoted, that's what happened.
You maybe didn't get a very big increase.
I
Right,
don't-
when you
you're
made the
right,
change.
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I just know that the rule was, you went to the next step at the highest level, that county runs the same way. Unfortunately, this guy at the health department is very talented, effective once.
Well, and the way we have the scale laid out is the I mean, it really is a problem, right? Because of the way the scale is laid out, it creates the 1 cent, 2 cent problem. Where if the scale was laid out a little bit differently, then it would not create this problem. Because it wouldn't be 1 cent or 2 cents. It would be a little bit more, and it's justified.
I'd be a lot more concerned if it's 1 cent, 2 cent less. So 2 cent more.
Well,
I mean, you look at it, the backside, he was getting paid the same amount to do the same, or he was getting paid
but
$5 less to do that job when he started, opposed when he's.
But we wouldn't do that because our system is designed even right now, Rusty, so that if you go from a level 2, I'm gonna call those grades, grade 2 to a grade 3 position, and you were at step 6 at 1751, you're going to go to a step 3 in that case, because that step 2 is exactly the same as the step 6, you're gonna go to 1805. But if you come down, you're advancing that, you're now 1978 an hour, you're gonna go to grade 4 at 1979 an hour, so it's
That's what I
penny.
mean.
It's a penny more.
To go behind back, you know.
You're not going back, you're still going ahead.
Right, but depending on where you are, when you make that jump, it's a penny or it's
2
2
cents,
cents.
or, well,
It could be significantly
or
higher
it's,
than that.
or it's,
Well, if you go from 2 to 3, you get the
You know,
3%.
if you're going from grade 2, year 6 to grade 3, then you're getting, 1805 from 1751. So, you're getting,
The whole 3%, right? Or whatever that
yeah,
percentage
you're
is.
getting,
You're getting the whole pay rate, right? The
Yeah.
whole stuff.
Mhm.
that's, there again, that's why I'm like, that seemed like adding this language, the step which is at least 3% higher, fix the problem without having to fix the scale or change the scale.
Without having to remit the bill, takes care of it, it's only isolated incident. Not retroactive for this guy who did.
And it just doesn't. It's really.
I move we take it to the full board for approval.
yeah. Motion from Commissioner Howard, second from Commissioner Baker to take the revised personnel policy manual to the full board for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carried. Commissioner Baker mentioned potentially the need to reevaluate the environmental code of health. A reminder to the commissioner that we as the board can look at that, but that environmental health code must be adopted as written without changes by all 3 counties as well, same as our joint operating agreement. So,
What's up in the code policy?
okay, the policy.
Mhm.
And I would say that I'm a little concerned that the policy is not out there online.
Okay.
If we're gonna say, well, this is the policy that we follow. We just heard today that somebody says, this is what you public, this is the environmental health code.
I hear you.
I mean, that could be a rule. I mean, if someone bought a house last week, looking at that code saying, I'm legal to do this, now we're not. Ooh.
Yeah. I will set up some meetings with EH staff and we'll start plowing through their policy and procedure documents. Make sure that they are current and accurate, and then we'll get them posted on our website.
I just am not a fan of adding any more policy or any more restrictions to what the state has already bound their hands with.
Yeah, I don't.
I understand why they're doing it,
Yeah.
but I don't like it.
And Paul and I have talked, and he's not a fan of the cell chamber. And I don't think
Right.
you are either,
No,
Becky.
not really.
Okay.
We've
But
seen a lot of failure with it.
But I can go 2 miles south of my house, 3 miles south of my house in Ohio, and they use them
Everywhere.
Over time.
all the time, everywhere. And you go up north in Michigan, and they use them all the time.
Florida,
Everywhere.
anywhere where there's a water or table problem.
And so you say, and yes, there could be disadvantage to a statewide mandated environmental health code and septic system. But that's one where, well, we have a environmental health director and a health officer who doesn't approve it. And these 3 are,
They can put an infiltrator system in, Brett. We don't say that they can't do it. It's just that in our experience, we have seen more failure with that particular system, but we haven't denied them
Well, we
doing
need to
it.
let these people have that option. I mean, instead of trying to talk.
I'm not sure that would work in their situation.
But you know what I'm saying? Instead of trying to, he's trying to talk about it earlier. Well, this way it works.
Still gotta be 4 feet to the seasonal high water
Right.
table. There's still gonna be, yeah, and there's still that. I still don't, I'm still not
Yeah, they have-
seeing
but
the
they-
paper.
They have to build that up.
They're gonna.
They have to build it up for the seasonal high water table.
Right.
I said, if you ever, and that's why I wanted to make sure I put eyes on it. That lot to the south of them, that park lot
Yeah.
is some low ground. So that's why, and which even comes up a little bit into theirs. So yeah,
It's too bad we have freezing weather, because you could do what they do in Florida, right, where you build on stilts. And then you don't have to worry about lines freezing, so the lines just follow the stilts of the house, right? Can't do that.
It's got
and
huge house building stuff. Has an elevator, get to the garage.
Wow.
I made the wrong career choices. Should know your cousin.
That's quite well. But yeah. We adjourn.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
All those in favor? Aye.
Well,
Yeah, Dad built about every system, probably 1980.